Just Thuo. Welcome to the Neuroarchitect.
Thank you very much, Maria. Humbled to be here. It's a great platform, and I couldn't be more humbled for
Thank
you to
you.
give me this platform.
Thank you. Before we start, tell us a little bit about the secret behind changing your name.
So it's something that was always at the back of my mind growing up. It's a journey that started way back in my primary school, and with time, it has gained more meaning, especially after I got into architecture and looking at my background. So the name SanjotZ is a compilation of the first syllables of my full name, Samuel Njoroge Thuo. So I got the Sa from Samuel, Jo from Njoroge. This is because Njoroge is my grandfather who named after, and he was a carpenter. And then Thuo is from my dad, who is a stone mason. And the T comes from Thuo. Then I added the Z at the end. Back in the days, I was doing it for playfulness, but with time, it has gained more meaning in terms of being an architect and the aspect of three-dimensionality on the 3D Cartesian plane, the axis. The Z axis is the one that's used to locate a space in the middle of a 3D space. And so that also gave me an aspect of just aspiring to be a better architect, to keep growing in terms of as a person and as an architect.
So it's your architectural identity. You feel that once you call yourself this name, you want to be more inspired, you want to design more, you want to do more research.
Yes.
Correct?
I'm also inspired by the lives of Le Corbusier, because Le Corbusier was not his real name. He gave himself the name as part of identifying with the modernist movement. His real name was Charles Ginret, So it's also inspired in that way. So you are very right.
Please tell us more about your career path and the motivations behind your focus on neuroarchitecture and the human sensory experience.
I think that's going to be a long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. And so,
as long as needed for us to enjoy it and understand it.
And understand it. Brilliant. I think I'll start by saying that, as I mentioned in the formation of the name, that I come from a background of builders. My grandfather was a master carpenter. He, in fact, built the house where I grew up, our family house. My dad is a stone mason. And so I grew up in an environment where construction was happening. I remember my grandfather showing me how to hold a handsaw and how to cut timber. And growing up, I also remember going to watch my dad dress stones at construction sites. Other than that, when I grew up and after high school, on my way to join the university and even in the university, I'll go and work with my father at construction site as his assistant. And so construction, I can say, has been in my DNA. But I didn't know this because when I joined high school, I had never heard of architecture until I was around 16. And then I heard of architecture and I was curious and I was like, I like this. So you mean there's someone who designs what my father or my grandfather built? Okay, that sounds interesting. And so when the time came to choose a career path, for me, it was straightforward. That's what I was going to choose. So I chose architecture, and luckily I got selected to join the University of Nairobi to pursue architecture. It's the premier university in Eastern Central Africa in terms of offering architecture. So I got into architecture. I came to Nairobi. Now I grew up in the village, and now I come to the city.
Which year was it?
That was in 2017. That's when I came to Nairobi as a first year. And so getting into the city, coming from the countryside, one of the first shocks was I couldn't see large spans of the horizon that I was too used to in the countryside.
Mm.
Because now you have the huge skyscrapers that are towering in the city. The University of Nairobi is in the middle of the city. And another thing was the loss of rain sounds. It's something I grew accustomed to, the rain sounds. And now in the city, I'm sleeping in the university hostel on ground floor. You're waking up and you're surprised. Oh, it rained last night. I didn't know this. Because in the village, I used to, when it was raining, our house had a iron sheets roof. And so when it will rain, you'll just hear the rain sounds. Yeah.
Bit.
Yes.
Mm.
And so I felt some sort of a disconnection, because also in the countryside where we live, we live at a place where you can see huge spans of the forest, like hills far away. And so when it was raining, like rain will come from that side. And I get a hint of this last weekend because I was at home. So you'll see the rain coming. And I actually took a recording because it's a great experience which you don't get in the city. And so I didn't know what I was missing. And I'll go to the green parks in the city. We have a huge park called Uhuru Park where people just go and relax. It's a green space. So I'll go there over the weekends. And it was not until I got into my final year when I discovered what I was actually missing. It was the sensory connection with nature and with the environment. Because when I was preparing to do my dissertation, one of the professors, he gave us a talk on senses and how we interact with the environment, and that you can get into a room where there is no echo, there is no nothing, you can hear your heartbeat. And at that moment, my mind clicked. This is what I want to study for my dissertation. And so that's how I did my dissertation on multisensory experience in museums here in Nairobi. I did my research and I did a design project proposal for a museum of senses. I dubbed it the Senseum. So, and where the museum was meant to capture, to engage and stimulate the senses of the visitors. That's how I got myself now. Since then, my North Star is senses. That's like my purpose here on Earth.
So
Yes.
it's amazing how much you were attuned to your senses and nature's heartbeat and body, let's say. You were looking at it, you were communicating with it through your eyesight, through your hearing, through your touch also. Maybe you were touching the sand, the soil, the water, the rain, and smelling it, because when it rains, you smell different smells also. And suddenly you moved, like you detached from a major part of your communication with the world, and you went to something else where you felt
Yes.
a disconnection from the world, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge disconnection, and it's something that many people relate to, especially people who are coming from, say, like they've had those experiences growing up. Like some people will say, like, I remember going to my grandmother's house. This was the experience. So we have this innate connection with nature. It's because when we engage other senses like smell, because some people would say, I remember how my grandmother's house used to smell. I remember the smell of rain, of soil, the one we call petrichor. It's because like the sense of smell goes straight to the part of the brain that's connected to our memories. And so when you're disconnected with this, when you smell it, you will know it.
Is this when you became aware that you lost something, or you became aware of the importance of the senses, or you were aware that senses are important since childhood?
I think it also came as a result of, because now in the university, especially in architecture school, it's very demanding. Some call it torturous sometimes, working long hours. So you need to be in an environment where where you can relate, where you can stress release.
Existential questions become a little bit less heavier on you. I know the feeling. Every architecture student or who
Yes,
studied like knows this feeling. So you come
exactly.
through like an environment that calms you down, and you felt maybe the most intense period was during the stressful moments where you couldn't have the nature also to communicate with you.
Exactly. Because now when we are disconnected, I realized that my stress levels were going high. And when you go to nature, they calm down. And now after research, I came to find that when you go to nature and your senses, they become, nature feeds our senses in a holistic way that the artificial environment, the built environment can never.
Mm.
Reduces our cortisol levels.
But at least you know what's missing. Some people, you know, by nature, by our evolution structure, we know that something is
Yes.
missing, but we don't know what it is. Whereas at some point, you know what
Yeah.
it is. And this is what helps maybe in developing your designs.
Yes, that's right. And it informs the choice of materials. Like we know when you use timber or wood, because when you touch wood, it's warm. It doesn't take energy away from us, our well-being levels. And like when you go and touch steel, because steel takes away energy from us, takes heat away from us. So we want to be more closer to like wood than steel or metallic materials.
Mm. So here comes the question, what's the importance of multisensory design?
Brilliant. That's a important question. What's the importance? I think we're already getting into that when you're saying that when we design for all the senses, when we use materials like timber and which encourage us to touch, they lower our heartbeat. Research has shown that it reduces our heartbeat, it reduces our cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone. Um, Other than that, another importance of designing for all the senses, because as you said, multisensory design is a conscious and intentional decision to engage all the senses in our design, in our designs and in our built environment. Because there's this, what we call the researchers like Yohani Parasma call it oculocentrism, obsession with the eye, designing for the eye in the modernist and the modern designs. And we have forgotten the other senses of touch, of smell, of hearing, and even tasting, and other senses that are not among the traditional five. And so when we design for these other senses like smell, like we mentioned, when we design for smell, we create more memorable experiences for people, especially at a time when we're like the young people, they want to get more into these immersive experiences. So when we design with other senses, we give them more memorable experiences. And now, like in the retail environment, when people get more memorable experiences, they want to go back to a store, to a shoe store to get another shoe. Is it a supermarket? They want to go back and get something else. In the case of learning environments, research has shown that when we design environments taking into consideration all the senses, that kids get to be more immersed in the learning environment, and therefore the learning process becomes much faster for them. And like when we've just designed for one sense. And it's the same, it's proven in the hospitals, in the healing environment. People heal faster when all their senses have been designed for. You've designed for sound, you have like calming sounds of, say, water. People will tend to heal faster. So I think the importance of design for multisensory design is like it's a myriad. I don't understand if we're not talking about it, especially also in the age of neurodiversity, where it's a big issue. And neurodiverse people, their main huge concern is the senses. where sometimes they are overstimulated or understimulated. And so when you're designing the senses in mind, we are taking into consideration the needs of neurodiverse people. Yeah, so I could go on and on. So let's leave it there for now.
So we invest all our conscious to design something for our unconscious or our instinctive way or automatic way anatomically to work to be more comfortable and more like harmonized. And for people, maybe we're talking about the sense of taste. Maybe some people will say like, how can design affect the sense of taste? So first
The
of
sense
all,
of
they need to imagine how a child or look at a baby, how the babies like take an item, an object, then touch it first of all. So
yes,
first thing is to touch it to know the dimension.
yeah,
Then they look at it and then they try to taste it. So this is something we grow up with. To understand something, we use all our senses. And maybe they try to shake it to see if it makes a sound.
that's right. That's right.
And when we grow up, we're just like old children, we don't change.
Yes,
When we grow up, like just imagine, remember yourself when you're eating in a pleasant space and feeling calm, and when you're eating in an unpleasant environment, with loud music, with maybe people fighting, with any unpleasant, like the smell is bad, and how you digest after it, after eating the same food, and how your preferences for food can change based on the sensory experience. So here comes the role of design also in giving you a better, pleasant experience while eating, because eating is for the need, but also to enjoy it.
to enjoy it, exactly. And you mentioned something very important also when eating, because eating is also a multi-sensory experience. Because when you're eating, some cultures you want to touch the food, you're going to taste the food, you smell the food.
You look at it, the presentation.
Yes, the presentation. And also now you mentioned another aspect of now sensory, what is called the sensory congruence, that you want when all these senses they're being engaged. You don't want like the sound that is there to be the sound of a nightclub in a very intimate restaurant. You want this sensory stimuli to be all harmonious. They are communicating one message of, say you want an intimate experience in a restaurant. You want sounds that communicate intimacy. You want smells that communicate that. You want the colors to insinuate intimacy in the restaurant setup.
We want also the echoes and the acoustics to be clear. It's not only people forget, like they concentrate on music, but they forget that the kind of echoing inside a room, even if it's not strong, like even with this micro changes, let's say, like things on a micro level that will affect a lot without us feeling it. So we need to be too much detail oriented when we're designing. We need to look at all the aspects of a design. And this is where comes the importance of putting in parallel the senses.
The senses, absolutely. Well put.
What are parallel activities and projects, or maybe research?
Currently, I'm more into research. I've been doing a lot of research. So I'm working with a small architectural firm where my input in terms of sensory design is also valued. I work with a modernist architect here in Nairobi, Kenya. So I try to offer my services in terms of making the environments to be more sensory oriented. I also lead the Conscious Nairobi chapter. This is under the Center for Conscious Design. We had our first event in March this year. It was a successful event where we were looking at reconnecting with Nairobi. I'm also writing. I do a LinkedIn newsletter called the Architect. Other than that, I'm also looking for collaborations in terms of research papers. I've done a research paper for the University of Nairobi, which I hope will be presented. I've also worked with a client for a residential house. The client wanted an escape from the Nairobi chaos, from the city chaos, to escape from that once they get to their home. And so we call the 3-bedroom house Sandscape, because we want when they escape the chaos, they get to sensory heaven. Yeah.
This house is in the city?
Yes.
Mm. And
it's on the outskirts of the city.
So you work on private spaces, but did you work like on specific public spaces with this firm?
No, we haven't worked on a public space, but I have a proposal I'm working on to redesign the Nairobi footbridge. There's a footbridge along the major highways that people don't use the footbridge, but it's there. So, and it's not that the location is off. It's at the place where people are supposed to be using the footbridge to cross the road. And so I was wondering why people are not doing this and how we can solve that. So I am designing a sensory footbridge, because I believe if you were to create a footbridge that engages the senses of the people, it will attract them more to go and use the footbridge, because currently the footbridge is just an exposed structure. There's not much design thought in terms of the experience. So I've incorporated things like plants that emit, enticing smells, calming smells, such that when people are leaving the office, they want to go through the footbridge to just get calmed. So that's one of the aspects I'm looking at in that footbridge. I'm also looking at how we can bring on board, like we have usually many people selling on the roadside here in Nairobi. So how can you incorporate such services on the footbridge, as even the food, it will attract people to such places, such public places.
How popular is this field in Kenya? And are there projects being designed this way?
I'll say there is a huge gap in Kenya. There is a huge gap, but at the same time, there's a demand for it. For the event we did with Conscious Nairobi in March this year, the theme was reconnecting with Nairobi, and we were looking at, despite all these infrastructure developments that are happening in the city, there's a lot happening in the city. How can people still stay connected to the city? And one of the key themes that came out was that we have to design for the senses of the people, the subconscious, the unconscious. We have to design for that, and that's what people are looking for. And the turnout was a good number from professionals, from various industries, engineers, urban planners, architects. So there's a demand for it, but there's not a huge investment. And one of the signs that there's a demand for it is one of the huge real estate developers here in Nairobi. They're called Has Consult. In one of their developments, they have created a botanical sensory garden. And it's one of the few I think, in Eastern Central Africa. And the unit has attracted quite a number of residents. There's also another sensory garden, and it's usually full. People are always attending, going there to just experience the garden. So the demand is there, but the investment is not really there. I don't know if it's in terms of the research is not really there, but it's also because of the funding. The funding is not so nice. Also because in the learning institutions, like in the university, we weren't taught a lot to do with perception and senses. Yet this is the major way that people interact with the environment.
But maybe there are some people who advocate for this, who are asking maybe organizations or experts, or maybe urban planners, architects who are trying to do a master plan, or who are giving more awareness about it, or doing some activities, or asking for a change in the curriculum, or maybe add some courses. Is there any action around this?
I'd say there's some traction that's developing. Early this year, there was the first Africa Biophilia conference and expo. So usually it's led by the young people. The biophilia movement in Kenya is led by a fantastic lady called Wangoi. It was the first one in Kenya, and the attendance was quite commendable. So I can say there is a growing traction for the movement, especially among the young people. And the reason why I mentioned biophilia is because it's intricately connected to sensory design. Biophilic design at its core is multisensory.
What is
traction?
you would like to implement, like a specific maybe project on a public, maybe outdoor level or maybe indoors, that you would like to have it as a priority to implement, that you see for Nairobi suitable for it as a priority?
I think as a priority,
It would be something that the people will enjoy to the maximum, and it will change maybe a lot of perspectives.
a lot of perspectives. I think for me, I'll say the footbridge. The footbridge and the tunnels. There's also another tunnel being constructed here in Nairobi, but the experience there, it's so mundane, it's so normal. There's nothing extraordinary about it. And so for me, I'll say the best and what I'd like to implement in Nairobi, it's seeing the footbridges and just the pedestrian experience in Nairobi to improve that. Majorly through the footbridges, creating them in such a way that they are offering sensory experiences, because I know this will attract people and it will draw people away from the road. So it has a safety aspect to it. It will attract people to use the tunnels to cross the road instead of just dashing across the road. So that's number 2. Number 3 is on the urban green spaces, because there's a huge potential on it. There's a demand for it in Nairobi. There's a huge demand for green spaces. The few that are there, they are not offering the best experiences that they can offer in terms of potential. There's huge potential. And research has proven that when these urban green spaces offer these holistic multisensory experiences, that people even crowd those spaces more and more. And it's good for their health. So it is not that it is good for their health, it's good for their well-being, it's good for even the local administrations.
How would your design of a green public space differ from what exists?
That's a very important question, because number one, you'll find that when you go to these green spaces, they are not planting the indigenous plants for say Nairobi. They are bringing plants from, say, like other coastal environments. So I think number one is to get rid of that and bring indigenous local plants. Also to bring on board plants that emit certain smells that I want, not just the environmental factor, but also what scent do I want these plants to emit for these people? You know, what in terms of also plants, there's also an aspect of bringing edible plants in these green spaces. There's an aspect of maintenance and taking care of that, but bringing this has an aspect of offering taste experience to people. I remember, and most people will tell, I've talked about they always remember growing up and the experiences they had with, say, like the wild fruits, so offering such amenities in these green spaces. Another one would be to make sure that not every walkway is paved. You also want to have some spaces where people can go there and be barefoot and just connect with the mud and enjoy the connection with the grounding, with the earth.
Which is actually healthy to feel rooted, symbolically, and on an anatomic level.
Yes, yes, yes.
It turned out to be very healthy. You get the electrons of the earth. And also, when you have local plants and greenery, it's not about only, seeing what's familiar. It's about heritage, but it's about also these plants, these local plants have been for so long on this piece of land that
Yes.
it, let's say, it communicates with the environment,
Yeah, yeah.
knows what to emit,
Mm-hmm.
in harmony with the other natural components, like
Yes.
the air, like the temperature, like humidity,
Yes.
like anything around it. And the things at some point shapes related also to the environment. So it's not only about having the local to say, okay, we're just maybe enhancing the local identity or this patriotic sense, but it's also about nature and how we communicate it and how our inheritance also, like on an unconscious level, is constructed around this nature-human communication.
Exactly. That's so well put. I like to say that nature is the best multisensory design.
Mm.
Yeah, it's the best. And as architects and designers, we are not doing the human race justice with the built environments that we are creating for people to spend 90% of their lives. We need to be humble and learn more from nature in terms of how it entices our senses, how it stimulates them, how I dare say it nourishes the senses, because our senses, they desire to be nourished. And when we don't nourish them, it's going to be evident. In workplaces, people are not productive because all the walls are painted white. The lighting is constant from morning to evening. There is no sounds. Only sounds present. It's probably the AC, air conditioning sounds.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
Sonic sounds. So now white noise is depending not on the waves or the leaves of the trees. It's about AC, fans,
Yes.
everything electronic, and that's quite bad. Bad, let's say we're trying to adapt, okay, but if we have the natural way of things, maybe we also feel better as well.
Yes. Yes. And I believe we can do better in terms of designing. I think as architects and most architects, we're usually concerned with canceling out, say, the bad noises, bad sounds, canceling out bad smells, canceling out bad views. We also need to consider how we can design for good smells, how we can design for good sounds, how we can design for good tastes, good sights, and nature offers us the best template
Mm.
in terms of that.
So it's not about masking. We shouldn't work on masking. We should work on taking, working on changing the route, working
Yes.
on making it better.
Making it better, yes. We are concerned with getting it from negative to zero. We need to take from now 0 to positive. Yeah.
To do this masking because behind the mask there is the reality, after all.
Yes.
So, final thoughts or message you would like to deliver?
I think my final message will be to the ordinary citizens and to the listeners and the people who are going to be watching us. I want them to just do a small sensory audit in their space. If they were to close their eyes, how would they like their space to smell? How would they like to, and how would that smell make them feel? How would they like their space, be it an office or their home, their bedroom? How would they like that space to sound? When they've closed their eyes, how would they like that house to sound like? What sounds would they like to hear? And how will those sounds make them feel? What textures would they like to touch? And how would these textures make them feel? That's my challenge to our audience, because I strongly believe that when they told us that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I disagree with that. I believe that beauty is in all the senses of the beholder.
That's true. And you said it's a challenge because, yes, at some point, people are not accepting their imagination. They are invalidating their imaginations because they were taught at some point to keep imagination on the side and be more realistic. Whereas all our development was based on imagination that we thought would be like more than what we can do, beyond our capacities.
Yes.
So imagine, allow yourself to imagine and to accept what you're feeling. Maybe if you have children, sit with them, they will help you. Children will help you at that point because children still allow themselves to imagine.
Yes.
And, people, users, give us, sometimes inspire us as architects and designers to do for them what they're imagining. So just keep ourselves and communicate with us and let us design for you what's better for you and for
Exactly.
your.
Well put. Yes. Well put, Maria.
Thank
Well
you.
put, Maria.
SanjotZ, thank you so much for this interesting conversation.
You're welcome, Maria. Thank you.
And thanks for watching us.